In March 2023, a charter flight lifted off from Imphal, capital of Manipur State, in northeast India, carrying 324 passengers to Tel Aviv. They were not tourists. They were Bnei Menashe, the sons of Manasseh, members of tribal communities who claim descent from one of Israel's 10 lost tribes scattered by Assyrian conquest in 722 BC. For decades, Israeli rabbinical authorities studied their traditions, Sabbath observance in villages with no synagogues, dietary restrictions in mountain communities that had never seen a rabbi, and oral histories tracing lineage back to ancient Israel. In 2005, Israel's chief rabbinate formally recognized them. By 2024, over 5,000 had immigrated under the law of return. You are watching families step off planes at Ben Gurion Airport, carrying scrolls preserved for 2,700 years, speaking languages that sound nothing like Hebrew, yet observing rituals Judaism never forgot. For Israeli officials, it is humanitarian immigration policy. For prophetic scholars, it is Isaiah 49, verse 12 unfolding in real time. Behold, these shall come from afar, from the north and from the west. This is not coincidence. This return was named nearly 3,000 years ago. In September 2021, Israel's Interior Ministry approved an expansion of immigration quotas for the Bnei Menashe community. The bureaucratic language was dry. It listed annual entry permits, family reunification protocols, and settlement absorption budgets. But beneath the administrative process lay something older. On the map, coordinates point to remote villages scattered across Manipur and Mizoram, perched in mountain ranges along the border between India and Myanmar, roughly 4,000 miles east of Jerusalem. These are not random locations. In 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel and deported its population eastward. According to 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 6, the Israelites were carried away to Assyria and placed in Hala and Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. The kingdom shattered. 10 tribes vanished from recorded history. Judah survived in the south. Levi maintained temple service. But Ephraim, the dominant tribe of the north and son of Joseph, disappeared into imperial exile. The prophecies never said they would stay lost. They said they would return. For some, the 2021 vote was immigration management. For others, it was the reopening of a door closed for 2,700 years. But here is what makes this different. Ephraim was never supposed to vanish. You need to understand the geography. Ancient Israel wasn't unified. The northern kingdom, often called Israel or Ephraim after its leading tribe, controlled territories from the Jezreel Valley to the upper Jordan. It included 10 tribes: Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Dan, Simeon, Issachar, Zebulun, Ephraim, and Manasseh. The southern kingdom, Judah, held Jerusalem, the temple, and the Davidic dynasty. When Assyria conquered the north in 722 BC, it wasn't just a political defeat, it was identity erasure. Deportation scattered populations across Mesopotamia, Media, and beyond known trade routes. The southern kingdom survived until Babylonian exile in 586 BC, and those exiles returned. The northern tribes did not. Hosea chapter 1 verse 10 to 11 speaks directly to this fracture. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass, that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Not Judah, not Levi. Ephraim. In the mountains of northeast India, elders of the Bnei Menashe sing ancestral songs about crossing great rivers, fleeing westward enemies, and settling in lands their fathers never knew. They preserve the name Menashe, the Hebrew name Manasseh, Joseph's eldest son and Ephraim's brother, across 100 generations without contact with mainstream Judaism. But how did they survive without a name? Rabbi Eliyahu Avichael arrived in Manipur in the early 1990s. He He was not on a mission trip. He was investigating reports of tribal communities practicing rituals similar to Jewish practice in one of the most remote corners of Asia. What he found stunned him. He found villages observing a weekly day of rest, dietary restrictions against mixing meat and milk, and oral traditions describing a great flood, a patriarch with 12 sons, and an exodus from captivity. Families lit oil lamps on Friday evenings. No synagogues, no Hebrew texts, no rabbis for 2,700 years. Yet the rituals persisted. The Bnei Menashe numbered roughly 10,000 across Manipur, Mizoram, and parts of Myanmar, and they belonged to the Kuki-Chin Mizo ethnic groups. Linguistically, they are Tibeto-Burman. Genetically, they show East Asian ancestry, but their oral histories trace a westward migration from Israel to Assyria, through Persia, into Afghanistan, across the Tibetan Plateau, and down into Southeast Asia. Anthropologists documented these claims. Some were skeptical, others noted the specificity, not vague chosen people mythology, but detailed genealogies, naming tribal ancestors. Isaiah 49 verse 12 became a touchstone. It says, "Behold, these shall come from far, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim." Sinim. Scholars debate its meaning. Some link it to China or to distant eastern lands. Avacheo believed he had found them. By 2005, Israel's rabbinical authorities agreed, granting formal recognition. The Bnei Menashe could return under the law of return if they completed formal conversion processes to align with Orthodox standards. Verification took decades. Flights began in 2006, but prophecy does not just predict survival, it predicts return. Ephraim's disappearance was not accidental. You trace the Assyrian strategy: conquer, deport, resettle, erase. The empire relocated populations systematically to prevent rebellion. Israelite exiles were scattered beyond Mesopotamia, placed in regions where their language, religion, and identity would dissolve within generations. And it worked. By the time of Jesus, the phrase 10 lost tribes was already shorthand for irretrievable loss. Hosea chapter 7 verse 8 captured the trajectory. Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned, a people blended into surrounding cultures, baked unevenly, with identity half-formed. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 64 had warned, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other." Not symbolic exile, literal geographic dispersion, from Assyrian cities to Central Asian steppes to the edge of the known world. The farther they went, the harder it became to trace them. Historians assumed they assimilated completely, but the prophecies never described assimilation. They described loss as a temporary condition. The scattering was preparation, not for extinction, but for a return, so dramatic it would defy natural explanation. The Bnei Menashe migration path aligns with documented trade routes. The Silk Road, Tibetan caravan trails, and mountain passes into Southeast Asia. They moved east, they moved north, they settled at the ends of the earth, exactly where the prophecies pointed. Hosea chapter 1 verses 9 to 10 contains one of Scripture's sharpest reversals. God tells the prophet to name his son Lo Ami, not my people, symbolizing Israel's broken covenant. Then immediately, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, and it shall come to pass, that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God." Paul quotes this passage in Romans chapter 9 verse 25 when discussing the mystery of Israel's partial hardening and future restoration. For centuries, the northern kingdom existed as Lo Ami, scattered, unnamed, unclaimed. The Bnei Menashe lived this literally. They were not recognized as Jews by mainstream Judaism. They had no state, no temple, no formal religious authority, yet they preserved fragments, Sabbath rest, biblical stories, tribal memory. When Israel's chief rabbinate began reviewing their claims in the 1990s, it was not automatic. Genetic studies showed mixed ancestry. Linguistic evidence was inconclusive, but oral tradition was consistent. In 2005, Chief Sephardic Rabbi Shlomo Amar ruled they could be considered descendants of Israelite tribes if they underwent formal conversion to align with halakhic standards. Between 2006 In 2024, over 5,000 completed the process and immigrated. Each arrival presented a modern immigration form stamped at Ben Gurion Airport, overlaying an ancient scroll declaring covenant restoration. Not my people until they are, but the return does not happen quietly. Open the Hebrew Bible to passages describing the ingathering. Notice the directions. Isaiah chapter 11 verses 11 to 12 describes, "And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth." Not just west, not just nearby diaspora communities, four corners. Isaiah chapter 43 verses 5 to 6 says, "Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east, and gather thee from the west. I will say to the north, Give up, and to the south, Keep not back. Bring my sons from far, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. East, north, ends of the earth." Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 8 reads, "Behold, I will bring them from the north country, and gather them from the coasts of the earth." The prophets did not write vaguely. They gave geographic indicators. For most of Jewish history, the dispersion pointed west and south to Spain, North Africa, Europe, and eventually the Americas. But the northern kingdom's exile went east, into Assyria, into Media, and beyond. By the 20th century, researchers documented Jewish and Jewish-adjacent communities in Ethiopia, Beta Israel, in India, B'nai Menashe, and B'nai Ephraim, in Myanmar, in China, the Kaifang Jews, and in Central Asia. Some had formal Jewish practice and others preserved fragments. Isaiah 49 verse 12 mentions Sinim, a debated word that may refer to distant eastern lands. When the B'nai Menashe flights began landing in Tel Aviv, prophetic scholars noticed they came from the east. They came from mountain regions north of typical diaspora centers, from remote territories fitting the phrase the ends of the earth. The text was always pointing there, and now the map starts closing. You want hard evidence. Genetic studies on the B'nai Menashe show East Asian markers consistent with Tibeto-Burman populations. Some researchers identified minor Middle Eastern genetic components, possibly from ancient Israelite ancestry or from medieval Silk Road contact. Results are disputed. Linguistic analysis of their oral traditions found Hebrew, adjacent terms, and biblical narratives, but no direct linguistic continuity with ancient Hebrew. The traditions could have been adopted through contact with Jewish traders centuries ago, or they could be authentic remnants preserved orally across 2,700 years. Anthropologists note similar phenomena, isolated communities preserving cultural fragments through oral transmission, sometimes with remarkable accuracy, sometimes with distortion. The B'nai Menashe themselves rely primarily on tradition, family histories passed elder to child, generation to generation, naming Manasseh as ancestor, describing westward flight from enemies, and recounting settlement in distant mountains. Rabbi Avichail's investigation in the 1990s emphasized ritual consistency, not random adoption of practices, but integrated observance, suggesting a deep-rooted tradition. Israel's rabbinate accepted this as sufficient for recognition, while requiring formal conversion. Some scholars remain skeptical, viewing the community as sincere believers in a genealogical myth rather than proven descendants. Others see the preservation of specific practices, Sabbath, dietary laws, and circumcision rituals as statistically unlikely without authentic transmission. Science stops at probabilities. Tradition continues past proof. DNA can trace populations, but it struggles with gaps of 2,700 years and multiple migrations. What the evidence shows clearly is this: a community preserved a Jewish-adjacent identity in extreme isolation, sought reconnection with Israel, and was formally recognized. Whether that recognition fulfills Hosea's prophecy or represents compassionate immigration policy depends on your framework. Prophecy never promised DNA certainty. Track the timeline of Israeli government decisions. In 2005, the chief rabbinate recognized the B'nai Menashe. By 2007, immigration approvals slowed amid political debate about absorption costs and conversion standards. In 2010, the Israeli government halted approvals, citing budgetary concerns. Community members who had begun conversion processes in India were left waiting. Advocacy groups, including Shavei Israel, lobbied for renewed approvals. In 2013, limited immigration resumed. By 2021, Interior Ministry quotas expanded again. Why the hesitation? Israel faces constant immigration pressures, integration challenges, housing shortages, and political tensions over who qualifies as Jewish under the law of return. The Bnei Menashe case was controversial. They required conversion. They spoke no Hebrew upon arrival. Settlement costs were significant. Some religious authorities questioned the historical claims, yet approvals continued, expanded, and resumed even after pauses. Ezekiel 37 verse 21 describes this exact resistance. Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. The gathering happens despite obstacles, not smoothly, not without political friction, but persistently. Israeli bureaucrats did not sit down with ancient scrolls and plan prophetic fulfillment. They debated demographic security and budget allocations. Yet the pattern aligned. Approvals came in waves, pause, then resume, then expand, like bones assembling slowly despite resistance. For policymakers, it is pragmatic decision-making under pressure. For prophetic observers, it is Ezekiel 37, the dry bones vision, where restoration happens incrementally against expectation over time. But this is not the only tribe moving. Go back to Genesis 48 verse 19. Jacob blesses Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. He places Ephraim before Manasseh, despite Manasseh being the firstborn. The verse says, His younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Ephraim became the dominant tribe of the northern kingdom. When prophets spoke of Israel's exile and return, they often used Ephraim as shorthand for the northern tribes. Joseph's sons carried a unique blessing, not just survival, but preeminence and multitude. Joseph himself prefigured the pattern. He was separated from his brothers, presumed lost, later revealed and elevated, and he reunited the family. Prophetic interpreters see this pattern recurring. Ephraim scattered first. Ephraim returns first, not all at once, not as a single community, but in pieces. Beta Israel from Ethiopia from the 1980s to the 1990s, Bnei Menashe from India from the 2000s onward, and smaller communities from Myanmar, Peru, Uganda, and Zimbabwe, groups claiming Israelite descent, often from northern tribal lineages, formally recognized and immigrating. Judah never fully disappeared. The southern kingdom maintained continuity through the Babylonian exile and the diaspora. Ephraim vanished. Ephraim's return is the sign of deeper restoration. The Bnei Menashe identify primarily with Manasseh, but some Indian communities claim Ephraimite descent. Whether literal genealogy or symbolic representation, the pattern holds. Joseph's tribes are moving, quietly, incrementally, from the ends of the earth. Zechariah chapter 10 verses 6 to 7 describes this. And I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph, and their heart shall rejoice as through wine. Yea, their children shall see it and be glad. Judah and Joseph, separate, now reconnecting. Joseph always goes first. Every return creates controversy. In Israel, absorption of the Bnei Menashe sparked heated debate. Religious authorities argued over conversion standards, some accepting simplified processes, others demanding full Orthodox compliance. Secular Israelis questioned government funding for communities that require significant integration support. Housing ministers faced pressure to settle returning groups in contested territories, particularly West Bank settlements, which intensified political tensions. Some immigrants resisted settlement locations and sought urban centers instead. Budget committees debated allocations, including Hebrew language training, job placement, and community infrastructure. Media coverage was divided. Some outlets celebrated the homecoming, others questioned historical claims. Genetic studies were cited by both supporters and skeptics, the same data yielding different interpretations. Within the Bnei Menashe community, Generational divides appeared. Elders who had preserved traditions in India sometimes clashed with youth seeking faster integration into Israeli society. Conversion processes felt invasive to some who had practiced Jewish adjacent rituals for centuries. Others embraced formal recognition eagerly. Ezekiel 37 verse 7 describes the dry bones vision. It says, "So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied there was a noise, and behold a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone." The Hebrew word kol also means voice or sound, commotion, disturbance, not peaceful assembly. Restoration in Ezekiel's vision involves shaking, rattling, disruptive movement. Prophetic fulfillment does not require consensus. It predicts friction. Bones do not quietly assemble. They shake, collide, and click into place through resistance. For some, the controversy proves nothing is happening. For others, it confirms the prophecy. The return happens despite resistance, perhaps because of it. Resistance does not stop the bones from moving. By 2024, over 5,000 B'nai Menashe had settled in Israel. You see them in West Bank settlements like Kafar Tapwach, in northern development towns like Kiryat Shemona, in religious communities across the Galilee. Young men serve in the Israel Defense Forces. Families learn Hebrew, navigate bureaucracy, integrate into Israeli society. It's not seamless. Cultural adjustment takes years. Economic integration varies. Some thrive, others struggle, but they're there, permanently. Jeremiah 31 verse 20 captures the emotional weight. "Is Ephraim my dear son? Is he a pleasant child? For since I spake against him, I do earnestly remember him still. Therefore my bowels are troubled for him. I will surely have mercy upon him, saith the Lord. Ephraim judged, scattered, lost, now remembered." The metaphor is parental. A father who disciplined a son, sent him away, yet never stopped thinking about him, yearning for his return. For believers, every B'nai Menashe family landing at Ben Gurion Airport is that son stepping back through the door. For Israeli officials, it's immigration statistics, settlement demographics, defense needs. Both perspectives see the same families, the same integration challenges, the same young soldiers in Israel Defense Forces uniforms. Interpretation diverges. Facts converge. What happens next depends on scale. If immigration continues at current rates, a few hundred annually, the B'nai Menashe become one more small community in Israel's diverse population. If it accelerates, if other communities gain recognition, if geopolitical conditions shift, if rabbinical rulings expand, the numbers change. But Ephraim's return is not the end. Zoom out. You are not just watching one immigration program, you are watching Middle East realignments. In 2020, the Abraham Accords normalized relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and later Morocco and Sudan. Ancient enemies are signing peace agreements and regional trade routes are opening. In 2022, Israel discovered massive natural gas reserves off its Mediterranean coast, shifting energy dynamics. Relationships with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt are evolving. Borders that seemed permanent for decades are becoming negotiable. Ezekiel 37 verse 22 says, "And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all." One nation, not two. Judah and Ephraim, separated since 930 BC. When Solomon's kingdom split, are prophesied to reunify. Symbolically, spiritually, and literally, interpretations vary, but the geographic motion is undeniable. Communities scattered to the east, north, south, and west are reconnecting with the land, not just B'nai Menashe, Beta Israel from Ethiopia, Ben Ephraim from India. Emerging communities are claiming Jewish ancestry in Peru, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria. Some are recognized, others are under review. The ingathering is not finished, it is accelerating, and not just through immigration. Israel's geopolitical position strengthens, regional alliances form, territorial control expands or consolidates depending on conflict outcomes. The prophetic framework sees convergence, people returning, land restoring, nations aligning or opposing according to ancient patterns. The practical framework sees strategy, demographics, and security. Both frameworks map the same movements. The question is not whether pieces are moving, it is why they are moving now in this sequence from these locations. Judah and Ephraim are moving towards something. In October 2024, another flight landed, fewer than 200 passengers this time. Media barely covered it, but the families stepping onto the tarmac carried the same scrolls, sang the same songs, and joined settlements absorbing previous arrivals. The process continues, not dramatic, not sudden, incremental, steady. The Israeli government still debates quotas. Rabbinical authorities still review claims. Other communities still wait for recognition. Skeptics still question historical links. Believers still see prophecy unfolding. Here is what is verified. Communities preserving Jewish traditions in extreme isolation for centuries have been formally recognized by Israel and granted immigration rights. Here is what is documented. Over 5,000 people from northeast India now live in Israel as citizens, serve in its military, and raise children in its schools. Here is what is interpreted. This fulfills Isaiah's promise of ingathering from the east, Jeremiah's gathering from the north, and Ezekiel's reunification of divided kingdoms. On a Friday evening in a settlement near the West Bank barrier, a B'nai Menashe grandmother lights Shabbat candles. Her granddaughter, born in Israel, recites the blessing in fluent Hebrew. The grandmother learned the lighting ritual from her grandmother, who learned it from hers, an unbroken transmission across 2,700 years, through Assyrian exile, Persian domains, Silk Road migrations, Tibetan plateaus, Burmese jungles, and Indian mountains. No rabbis, no synagogues, no texts, just memory, just tradition, just a promise that they were not Lo Ami forever. The puzzle is not finished. Controversy remains. Questions persist. But this piece, Ephraim's return from the ends of the earth, has just clicked into place. The planes keep landing, the settlements keep growing, and the prophecy, it names every location, east, north, from distant lands. One by one, the pieces are moving.